Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here we talk about psychology and true crime. And the case of Meagan Jackson, it came up on my feed while I was on vacation, and I wanted to come back and get to talk with you all about this. My kiddo needs something. Yes, yes, you can have a piece of gum. Yeah. And this case has ups and downs. So the individual's pictured. So the victim is all the way on the end in the blue shirt. Megan is in the middle, and Chris Dantel, he was a co-conspirator, and he is going to testify against her. It's my understanding. I'm not sure if he was sentenced yet. I will check that as we are watching. Yes. And so this case, so Chris, the co-conspirator, he used to be the deputy coroner in his area. And they met at work, and an affair started. His wife is going to testify. So we are going to watch Megan's daughter, who the victim in this case, Mr. Rice, um, their daughter is going to testify. And then we're also going to watch a little bit of Chris's testimony and also his wife. All right. Yes. And so we're going to talk about the Disney trip in a members only stream right after this. I'm excited to chat with you all about that. The video will be available for everyone sometime either later this week or next week. But yeah, I will flip it over. Thank y'all for the support. All right. So please prepare yourself, because her daughter's testimony is very emotional, understandably. This is her father, and she is testifying against her mother. So for a little background in this case, let me share this one again. So for a little background, in um in 2020, so let me get my details straight. Okay. October 5th, 2020, Mr. Rice was reported missing, and his body was found November 8th, 2020, a little over a month later, right off of Highway 378. And this is I believe this is South Carolina. And Meagan Jackson and Chris Dantel, they were both arrested in this case, and they were both charged in his death. Chris, the former deputy coroner, he ended up pleading guilty, so he did not go to trial. He immediately pleaded guilty, agreed to testify against her, and he is hoping that that will lighten his sentence. The victim in this case was so this is YouTube. We can't say certain words at the beginning of the video. So we have to say pew pew. Okay. So he had those types of wounds, multiple wounds on his body. And Chris is going to allege that Megan did all of this and he was not aware of any of this. Yeah. Her daughter having to testify. Ooh. And you can just feel the emotion in her testimony. I'm not gonna play the cross examination. I'm only gonna play the state. Okay. And if you want to follow this case and dive a little bit deeper, Grizzly True Crime did a deep dive on this case. So she has multiple videos covering this case. So let's get right into this testimony.
There you go.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And Savannah, I know you're nervous. I get it. If you can just make sure you speak into the microphone and just slow down a little bit so that the court reporter can hear what you're saying. Okay? And you always have to give what we call a verbal response. So if I ask you a question that's yes or no, you just have to verbally say yes or no. Okay?
Okay.
How old are you today?
I'm 19.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have 2 sisters, a half sister, and a little brother.
What are your parents' names?
Gregory Rice and Meagan Jackson.
Were they ever married?
No.
How would you describe your father?
He was a very flawed man, but we all did know he cared very much about his kids and his work, and he tried very hard for the people around him.
And that was very honest. So she's admitting, yeah, my dad had some flaws. I think everyone has some type of flaws. And so she's not trying to portray her father as an angel or anything, but he didn't deserve um to have what happened to him happen. And Megan is going to claim that there was harm, and her defense is going to be that Chris was really the one orchestrating all of this. We are going to watch the verdict in this case as well, because she can't. Megan was very emotional during the verdict. Once again, I think she was crying for herself, and kind of it was all about her. And I don't know that there was any guilt or remorse for anything that had happened. And this is just my hypothesis, just based on what we've seen. I do not know her. I can't say that for sure.
How would you describe your parents' relationship?
It was not great at all. There was constant fighting. They were mean to each other. They were mean to the kids. Just they weren't compatible. You didn't hear "I love you" very much throughout the house.
You said you didn't hear "I love you" very much, but did you ever hear your parents say "I love you" to each other?
No,
At some point, did your parents break up?
yes.
Do you know about when that was?
There was twice. The first time I was probably around 9. He was cheating on her. The second time, they just needed to go their separate ways, and it was a mutual breakup.
When your parents
And because somebody mentioned the way that Megan is staring, because she's not looking at her daughter with any love or affection. Like, she looks mad to me. I don't know how she's feeling, but to me, like, she looks up, and the daughter just said that this was a bad relationship. They were not good to each other, and it was probably a good thing that they went their separate ways. So for her face to be looking like this, like, the daughter isn't even saying anything, that's very negative about the mother. But the mother probably is viewing this as um the daughter not being loyal, because before this incident, it sounds like Megan and her daughter Savannah were very close, almost enmeshed, where there was no um appropriate boundaries, possibly, because I think the daughter felt like she had to choose between mom and dad, and the daughter chose to support mom and be on mom's side. And she intentionally distanced herself from her father because of kind of things mom had said. And this is my understanding of her testimony. So, what I got from her testimony, it sounded like the mother kind of like encourage Savannah to not see dad. And I'm sure Savannah has a lot of regrets, because she didn't know that those opportunities were going to be the last opportunities that she would ever have to see and be with her dad. Let's continue.
broke up, did they begin living in separate houses?
The second time, yes.
Where did you and your brother and your 2 sisters live?
And I'm sure the way that Megan is staring at Savannah, I'm sure it's making her more nervous. I'm sure it is.
We lived mainly with my mother.
Did your brother and sisters go to stay or visit with your father from time to time?
They did almost every weekend.
What about you?
I chose to stay home.
Okay. And that's okay. Why did you choose to stay home?
He would make me nervous, but also my mom would tell me that we would go do something fun together, so she would bribe me to stay home.
And Savannah is now seeing this as a bribe or manipulation, that if she didn't go see dad, that the two of them would do something fun instead. And that's
And I would.
Did despite the fact that you did not go over very often, did you still maintain contact with your father?
The best of my ability. My phone was disabled due to my mother. I could only receive calls.
When your brother and your sisters would go to stay with your father, would he pick them up and drop them off? Would your mother pick them up and drop them off? How did that work?
So this is going to become important when Meagan reports him missing. So when he doesn't show up to pick like this, that's going to become important later. The fact that dad would always come to the house to pick them
My
up.
dad always came to the house to pick them up, and he would bring them back as well.
When your father would come to pick your siblings up, did you go out and talk to him at all?
Yes, I would go out and I would have a chat with him, tell him I loved him, give him a hug. That was about it. I'd tell him if I was going to come over the next week or not.
At some point after your parents began living separately, did you meet a man named Christopher Dantel?
Yes, I did.
How did you meet him?
So once again, Chris Dantel is the co-conspirator. Like he's the one that, and we're going to watch his testimony later.
I met Chris because I, one, knew that he worked with my mom, but two, we moved into his neighborhood and I met his family and we started to hang out with his family and him.
So when you
And the disabling her phone might have, so I don't know what's happening with other things in the family. So the mom, because it sounds like the mom made it so her phone could only receive calls, which would mean dad could call her, but she wouldn't be able to call dad, or people could call her, but she couldn't make calls. And so that could have, so we don't know exactly why, and they're not going to go into it. Let's try to see, because this all happened back in 20. I'm thinking she's in her early 20s. How old is Meagan Jackson's daughter, Savannah? She's 19. So she is currently 19 years old. All right. I hope that helps. Let's get back into the
say
testimony.
his family, was he married?
Yes,
Did he have children?
yes.
How many kids did he have?
He had 2 children.
Do you know about how old they were?
I believe the son was around maybe 1 and the daughter was 6, I believe.
And you said that you guys moved into the same neighborhood as the Dantel family?
Yes.
About how far away did you live from them?
It was like 3 minute right down the road, just down our street and down another street and into a cul-de-sac.
So was it walking distance?
Yes.
Did your family and the
So her anxiety is starting to understandably go up because we're starting to get into closer to the incident. Okay. And so her emotions are completely understandable.
Dantels spend a lot of time together?
Yes.
At some point, did you come to know that your mother was having an affair with Christopher Dantel?
Yes, but not at first.
How did you find out about the affair?
I had some friends over and it was quiet. We went downstairs and we heard them having sex in their bedroom and it just kept getting louder and louder. And the next day I asked her and she said, "I thought you knew."
So that's where I bring up boundaries, because the mom is treating her more like a friend than her daughter, because finding out that, like, her daughter finding out that she's having an affair with a married man. So Christopher is married with, I think, 2 or 3 young children, at least 2. It might be 3. We're going to get to that a little bit later. And y'all can let me know if y'all think Meagan was ever pregnant, because Meagan is going to claim to Christopher's wife that she's pregnant, and she's going to tell Christopher that she's pregnant too. But I wonder, and I don't know that any questions about the authenticity of that ever came up. But I just wondered if she was actually pregnant.
Do you know about how long that was before your father went missing? And if you don't, it's okay.
I don't remember.
Okay. This will sound like a silly question, but do you remember when your father went missing?
October 2nd.
What do you remember about sort of that time period?
Before or after?
Right after, when you found out that he was missing. So October 2nd was a Friday night, right?
Mhm.
What happened the next morning?
She woke up. We all got up. She got the kids ready to bring them to our dad's, which I already thought was weird because he always came to pick them up and he would come in to see me, or I'd go out to see him, which it didn't happen this morning. So she got the kids in the car and
If you just take some time to breathe, it's okay.
Because it's my understanding that the boys are the ones that realized dad was missing. Um, and the fact that Megan did that, like that's diabolical as well. Um,
You need some water?
she brought the kids to his house and she called me and she was really frantic.
she called her 14-year-old daughter. Okay. She called her 14-year-old daughter instead of calling the police. So I think Megan wanted like sympathy or support or, but this is just, ugh.
She said she had searched everywhere. I'm sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
She had said she had searched everywhere. She looked in his car. She couldn't see his keys or his wallet or his phone. She looked in the windows and then she said she's going to call the police. And
So she's over here shaking her head like, no, I don't know. Like she's over here. So Savannah has no reason to lie. Absolutely none. None whatsoever. And she's over here like, no.
they came back. And that was really just,
When you say they came back, who do you mean?
Madison, Blake, Dakota, my siblings, and my mom.
Okay. So that was the morning of October 3rd. How did your life change after your father went missing?
My mom wasn't home even more often. She wasn't home due to her job most of the time, but it became a lot more when he went missing. Everybody was really emotional. We didn't go out at all.
And Savannah probably became almost the mom to her younger siblings. If Megan disappeared and like wasn't home as often and the kids are reeling with the, where's dad? Because it was over 30 days. So I think about 6 weeks. So at least 5 weeks or so, because it was October 2nd through I think we said November 8th when his body was recovered.
My mom did, but we didn't. We really just stayed in the house.
It's okay, take your time. Do you remember when they found your father's body?
Yes. I do.
What do you remember about that?
I was at my best friend's house, and her mom came in the room. She told me not to go onto any of my electronics, but she didn't know that one of my friends from the neighborhood had already told me.
So she didn't even find out from her mother. It sounds like she found out from like something on social, like a news report or something on her phone.
I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
But
This is kind of like a big other. Was there anything significant about that day besides the fact that they found your father's body?
That they told us my mom had something to do with it, and that all of my siblings would have to be living somewhere else.
Well, no, I mean, November 7th or 8th. Is there anything about, when's your birthday?
November 7th.
Oh gosh, happy birthday.
Did your mother ever mention your father during the time between when he first went missing and when they found his body? So you can answer that. Did your mother ever say anything about your father between the time that he went missing and the time that they found his body?
Yes.
Can you just tell us about that? Take a couple deep breaths if you will tell us about that.
She had come home drunk one night, and I was in the kitchen.
So I just want to clarify, they found him the day after her birthday. Her birthday was November 7th. They recovered him on November 8th. And the reason why I wanted to share this testimony, while I do understand, I think it was incredibly stressful for her to be up there. She is also part of the justice for her father, because her testimony was likely very powerful to the jury. And so sometimes when people are survivors of crime, when people have been victims of crime, sometimes getting their day in court, for some people, it can give this, like, at least I did something. Not everybody can do it. So I've worked with clients that, due to their emotional state at the time, they weren't able to either testify in open court, and we tried to get them to just talk to the judge and just have the attorneys and have the defendant in a separate room. So sometimes we've tried to have like a closed courtroom, but the fact that she was able to do this, it really does speak volumes. I do think the pain, because we've talked about traumatic grief as well, and losing a family member to violence, losing a family member by the hands of another, like your mother. So not just another family member, but your mother did this to your father, and is trying to act like she didn't. And so we're going to finish this part up. We're almost done with her direct exam.
Kitchen, and my sister she wasn't behaving, and I told my mom, and she started screaming. And my sister was upstairs, but then she looked at me and she said, "I hope what happened to your dad happens to your sister." And I asked her, "What do you mean?" And she just wouldn't say anything.
And that was before.
Wait a minute. I need to rewind that. I missed. Mom came home drunk one night.
So tell us about that.
She had come home drunk one night, and I was in the kitchen, and my sister she wasn't behaving, and I told my mom, and she started screaming. And my sister was upstairs, but then she looked at me and she said, "I hope what happened to your dad happens to your sister." And I asked her, "What do you mean?" And she just wouldn't say anything.
And that was before they found your father's body? My last question for now. Did the state reach out to you and ask you to come here today, or did you reach out to us?
No, I called you guys.
And why did you do that?
Because I believe that she... I want to tell my truth.
I think you can't answer that question, so we'll just...
Oh,
that's okay.
She was so brave. Like, I am just in awe of her and her strength. Okay. So we are going to move on to the testimony of Erica Dantel, who is Chris's wife. So yeah. We're not going to watch all of it, but We're just gonna watch a little bit of this.
The court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes.
Thank you. Understood. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
Erica Dantel, Dontell.
There you are. Thank you. What do you do for a living?
I'm a teacher,
What grade?
4th grade.
Are you married?
Yes.
And what's your husband's name?
Christopher Dantel.
Okay. So somebody asked, what did I think about Erica still being married to Chris? And I wonder if after he's sentenced, I wonder if they will stay married. I don't know. I do believe he was sued by the victim's family. That was in some news reportings. Um, so June 9th, 2021. Oh, wow. The Rice children filed a wrongful death suit that included the mother and Christopher Dantel. And he lost his job. And so every family is different. I'll be interested to see if she stays with him after he is sentenced. And the day she's testifying is their 10th anniversary. So, yes, they are still married. All right. So let's go on ahead and hop into her testimony.
Is he the Christopher Dantel who is involved in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you two been married?
10 years today.
Do you have any children?
2.
And were you working back in 2019 into 2020?
Yes, I was in transition. I had left my in-school position, kind of transitioned to working at my sister-in-law's daycare when I was pregnant with.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit to get to the part of when she meets Meagan and they moved into their neighborhood. Okay, so let's get to that.
Yes.
How did you meet her?
I met her for the first time at.
Her eyes look nicer looking at her than looking at her own daughter. But I don't know if she knows her daughter asked to testify. Like she wanted to testify in this case. But like her face looks softer to this than it did to her own daughter.
The celebration lunch that they had for Chris when he moved from the transport company to work for the county. And then shortly after that, she moved into our neighborhood and we became friends.
Do you recall about when she moved into your neighborhood?
I want to say maybe like December of 2019.
How far away from you did she move?
Just the back of the neighborhood, like 2 streets over.
Did you know if Meagan had any children at that time?
Yes.
How many children did the defendant have?
4.
Do you know their approximate ages? You don't have to be exact.
I think when we met them, 15, 13, maybe 9 and 8.
Prior to, let me back up. When you first met the defendant, were you and your husband and your children already living in River's Edge?
Yes.
When the defendant moved into your neighborhood, did your families start hanging out together?
Yes.
And that's the diabolical part that because of course, Erica had no clue that Meagan was having an affair with her husband. No clue whatsoever. And I wanted to share this part because Megan's going to like buy stuff for their family. Like she's gonna like buy them. But I wonder if she was trying to have the wife not be suspicious of her and to like her. Like there's like a viciousness to that. That was just odd to me.
When the defendant moved into your neighborhood, was it just her and her children or did someone else live there?
Yep, just her and the kids.
Did the
So this is a good question. So what would Megan have gained by unaliving her ex? So it sounds like their relationship was pretty toxic and she had to co-parent with him. And I wonder how she felt about co-parenting with him if she because even when she had the kids full, so after he died, it's not like she spent more time with her children. Um there seemed to be some aspects of this where in her eyes, it's almost like he lost some of his humanity, and he was still a person. He's her child's father, her children's father, 'cause, they have 4 kids. Yeah. And so it's just it's a lot. And then I think she wanted Chris to leave his wife. And I wonder if she thought this incident would trauma bond them together and that they would be closer after. Because now they have this big secret. Chris Dantel is gonna say that Megan threatened his family. And so I just wonder about some of that. Um, Individuals are saying that the victim in this case was nicer to her than she was to him in the messages. Yeah, there was some weird behavior going on with Megan and the Dontel family. Because the way that Chris describes that the affair started, I don't know if it's accurate. So I don't know if it's true, because he's gonna say that he tried to that he said no to her at first, and then he was teased for that, and then so we're gonna get to that testimony next, but let's keep listening here.
the fact that this was the period of COVID affect how much time y'all spent together?
Yes, because we would always get together and things, but then once everything shut down, we were at each other's houses every day. Either her kids were at my house or we were at her house every day.
Did you consider her a friend back then?
On this day 5 years ago, yes.
Do you consider her a friend now?
No.
You said that the defendant had 4 children. Did you know who their father was?
I knew of him, but I had never met him, but I knew his name was Greg.
So you never met him, you didn't know him personally?
Mm-hmm. There was one time that I think he either picked up or dropped off the kids in the neighborhood and we saw him in the car, but never corresponded with him or anything.
Did the defendant ever talk to you about her relationship with Greg Rice?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. Just a leading question.
Oh, go ahead.
How did she describe her relationship with Greg Rice?
It sounded very toxic. She mentioned a lot of abuse, and she would say things like, "Oh, I'm going to go drop off the kids if I'm not back in an hour, or send somebody to look for me." And she just made it seem very hot.
And I wonder if that was some projection, because she's trying to make it sound like she's the one that could be in harm's way, when actually, you know, it was the other way around. So she seemed to tell everybody that she was in a unsafe relationship, that the victim in this case, that he was unsafe towards her, but there's no evidence of that. There just isn't.
Hostile.
When she mentioned abuse, did you ever see any signs of abuse on her? Any bruises, cuts, broken bones, or anything?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever see any evidence? Can you describe for the jury how big or small a part of your life, your family's life, the defendant became during this time period?
Very big. She literally infiltrated our whole lives, from our kids to our finances to just all areas.
And so that's where I wonder if Erica is viewing Megan as the one that perpetrated all of this, and that her husband Chris, he just, I don't know, he just got lost in it all. And now that Megan is out of their lives, that maybe, I don't know, like I have some, I'm continuing to form my thoughts on this. She reminds me of like a Lori Vallow Daybell, that um like she just wants what she wants, and she wants to have it all and doesn't really think about the needs, wants, and expectations of others. It really did remind me of that. Yeah. Yeah. Lori did the same thing, projecting things on Charles and alienating Tylee and Charles. And so that's where, when the daughter was talking about siding with her mother, it reminded me of Tylee. And then the vague threat to the other child, like that's just weird.
Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
no, I was waiting to.
Yeah, she just, I mean, like I said, we were together pretty much every day. And even if us grown-ups weren't, like her kids were with my kids all the time. So
Was the defendant working, where was the defendant working at this point?
crime staff transport, she had taken Chris's spot.
Did that,
Okay. So I'm just going to run through a few more things that happened that come out in this testimony. It's going to come out that that Erica, the wife, Chris's wife, she receives a weird message that her husband got somebody else pregnant. They later figure out that it likely came from Meagan. But this is where I wonder if Meagan no longer, like if she didn't want to share him anymore. Because and so a bunch of stuff happens with that. Okay. But she buys them stuff at Costco. It's just it's all very strange. I want to get into Chris's testimony. So this is Chris Dantel. He has been in jail. He is awaiting sentencing after this testimony.
Just raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Watch your step.
I like her dress. Her dress is pretty.
Get you to state your name and spell your last name for the court.
Christopher Allen Dantel. That's Dontell.
I'm gonna have you spell your middle name just because there are a couple different ways to spell Allen.
Allen, Allen.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Obviously, you're in custody at this time, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been in custody?
Since September 9th of 2021.
When were you arrested in this case?
I was arrested November 11th of 2020.
So his body was discovered November 8th, and I think they were both arrested, and they were granted bond. Once he pled guilty, he was detained, it sounds like.
Were you out on bond for a period of time then?
I was out on bond for, I believe, about 10 months.
And what happened to put you back in jail?
The bond got revoked for contact with my co-defendant.
What did you do before you were arrested?
I was a deputy coroner for the Horry County Coroner's Office.
Did you have any other jobs or businesses?
I did. I owned a totally unrelated business in facility maintenance with a business partner in Maryland.
Now, was your case called for trial in December of last year?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened when it was called for trial?
When it was called for trial, I pled to accessory after the fact and conspiracy.
Had you had any conversations with me or any other representative of the state about that plea before you stood up and said that?
No,
Do you have any agreements whatsoever with the state that's causing you to testify today?
no,
Did you plead guilty to those charges because you are in fact guilty of those charges?
Yes.
What are you hoping to get from testifying today if there are no agreements between the state and you?
Personally, I'm hoping to get obviously less time.
That was honest. So he's hoping to get less time. He is going to apologize to Savannah. Yeah. And yeah, it's a lot.
I'm also hoping to provide closure for the Rice family.
Because they're going to find out.
Were you, I'm going to sort of jump around just a little bit because I'm going to go to after the murder, before the murder. Were you interviewed multiple times by law enforcement prior to your arrest?
Yes.
So the state is pointing out his credibility issue because when he was first arrested, he did not, like they had a story that they both told prior to him deciding to tell the truth or to say what happened.
Did you tell the truth during those interviews?
No.
Why?
A few reasons. One, I was still trying to protect my job.
That's honest.
I had a family, a house, I had a career, I had a good life, and I'm trying to protect it. I'd also been threatened by my co-defendant that if I ever told the truth, she'd kill me.
You said one of the reasons is that you were trying to protect the house. You had a nice house and a family. Does your family still live in that house?
No.
And some people might think it odd that a man is afraid of a fairly petite woman. Why were you afraid of her?
I was afraid of her because I watched her kill the father of her kid. And threatened to do the same thing to me.
All right.
And so the way that he's portraying that things happen, because I don't know where the truth lies. I'm just having watched his testimony once through. It does seem like things could have happened the way that he said they happened. Yeah, this is a tough one. All right, we're gonna keep it going.
So now, how did you come to meet the defendant?
So, I believe it was early 2018. She came to work for Grindstaff Transport, which is the company that contracts with the coroner's office as well as several funeral homes in the area to do body transport. I had worked for them for several years at that time, and when the defendant came to work for Grindstaff, I was one of the ones that was kind of put in charge of helping to train her. So I taught her things like, different funeral homes have different preferences for how you speak to the family.
Okay, so they work together, and then at some point the affair is gonna start. So I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. Okay.
Her. Did you introduce her to your family?
I wouldn't say it was when I first went to work with her, but I believe the first time she met my family was when we were living in a condo off of 38th Avenue in Myrtle Beach, and my wife was pregnant at the time, and we were moving into our new house in Conway. So I was having to box things up and lift the weight on my own because my wife couldn't lift, she was pregnant. Um, and I just happened to be talking about it on one of our death calls one day that, I had a lot of work to get done. I was having to box things up. I didn't have much help. And the defendant volunteered to help me lift the boxes and move them downstairs and things like that. So I took her up on that offer, and she came to the condo and helped, and she met my wife.
Do you know where the defendant was living at that point?
She was living in Myrtle's Inlet.
Who was she living with?
The victim in the case and her 4 children.
The victim being
Craig
Rice?
Rice, yeah, sorry.
When you moved from the condo, where did you and your family move?
We moved to River's Edge Plantation off of Highway 90 in Conway.
At some point, did you and the defendant begin a sexual relationship?
Yes.
How did that begin?
Well, it began, I would say, when there was a time I invited her to lunch at a restaurant called Bricks in Myrtle Beach. She came to lunch with me, and she ordered several drinks. It was the first time I'd seen her drink. She ordered a bunch of Amaretto sours and got hammered drunk. After that, and let me backtrack, I was a regular at Bricks. I went there a lot. I went there with my family. I went there after leaving the hospital from autopsies for lunch. I was a regular there. So after the initial time that the defendant met me there, I continued to go there on my own, and I started seeing her there. I would run into her there. She would already be there, and she would typically be drinking by herself. And she started becoming a regular there herself, more so than I was.
This was before your sexual relationship began?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting
No, you're fine. I'm just trying to make sure we keep the timeline correct.
I got you. So then on one of these occasions at Bricks, it was at night, she paid her bill, and she told me that she had to talk to me outside privately. So I went outside with her, and she told me to get in the van, her work van. So I got in the passenger seat, thinking she was going to ask me a question about work or something like that. And she turned the van on and threw it in reverse. I said, "Where are we going?" She said, "We can't talk right here." It was right by the entrance, and there were people around. So in the back parking lot of Bricks, it's kind of an incline in the parking lot, and it goes up to a service road, like a dead end service road. And she pulled into the service road and parked. And I said, "This looks suspicious. Why are we here?" She said, "Have you ever cheated on your wife?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, you're about to." Then she climbed over the console on top of me and started to kiss me. And on that occasion, I gently pushed her off of me and said, "I'm not doing this." For the next several days, she kind of made fun of me about it and told me that I was the only guy she's ever met that would have turned down that opportunity. And eventually I didn't push her off of me. I gave in, and that's when it all started. And it became a regular.
So that was a lot. Oh. So I don't know if this is true, but Teresa in the chat says that there may have been some I don't know. So that's where I wasn't sure if because also some of his wording of how he says he said things, it sounds like the way you would tell it in a story, but not the way that you might say it in real life. And so, and then if you know that she's looking at you that way, she wants you that way, if you really don't want to have an affair, you have to have you need really good boundaries. Really, really good boundaries. And it does, if it happened the way he said it happened, where he said no at first, and then she kind of teased him about it, like, who would say no to this? You're the only guy that would ever say no to this. That would be an attack on his manhood, but like, I'm just not sure. But there's enough evidence where it's fine if this part is a little questionable. I don't know. Because that's where I wonder if this is a story that he wanted his wife to hear. Like that's where Okay, good. So on cross-examination, anything prior comes out. Okay. Yeah, like the way this was coming across, to me, it sounded like, and I don't know if this is true. So I watched most of the cross examination, um, but I wasn't taking notes. And I'm one. Once I hear it, I have to like write it down sometimes to remember all of it. But we're gonna.
Uh,
Do you know about when the affair started?
Um, it would have been very late 2019, very early 2020.
And I think I think he very much wants to portray that him and his family, that they were also her victim almost. And I don't know if it happened exactly the way he says it happened. I don't know, but I don't question marks. Um, I don't know how much leniency, especially he was a deputy coroner. And he knows what to do when there's a deceased body, because it's mind because he's gonna explain that he's the one that disposed of the body. Like, he was the one that did that. Um, I do think he's probably gonna get some significant time, but we'll see. We'll see. And I like so he allowed Megan to infiltrate his family, knowing like what she like he knew she was two-faced. He knew. He knew that like he knew all these things. And that's where so when we talk about weakness, I like to talk about boundaries. I like to talk about um assertiveness, and then was there some part of him that wanted to kind of have this secret affair with her too? Like, I don't know.
Would you say that the two of you were fairly sexually active with each other? Did you have sex a lot?
I don't know. Depends on what your definition of a lot is, but yeah, fairly regularly. Yeah.
During your time together with the defendant, before the affair started and all the way until you stopped having contact with her, did you ever meet Greg Rice?
No.
Did the defendant ever talk to you about her relationship with Greg Rice?
Yes.
How did she describe her relationship with Greg Rice?
She described it as abusive. Basically, that he was a drug abusing woman beater, and that was why she left him.
And I don't know that any of that's true.
During your time with her, did you ever see any physical evidence of any, and what the defendant had anything to do with illegal drugs?
No.
At some point, did the defendant move into your neighborhood?
Yes.
Go back, that's a leading question, in my opinion, objective.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Do you know when that was?
She moved into the neighborhood around Christmas time of 2019. And I remember that because she had a Christmas tree in her house before she had anything else.
Okay. Once she moved into the neighborhood, did you and your family begin to spend time with her and her children?
Yes.
Okay, let me actually back up. Who moved into her house? Excuse me.
In River's Edge.
Yes.
She had left Greg, and she moved into the new house with her 4 children.
Approximately how far away was the house that she moved into from your house?
Right down the street, within a 2-minute walk, roughly.
And I think I might have just asked this, but did your family started spending time with each other?
All the time.
Speak it up again.
Did you ever have an opportunity to speak to the children about their father, Greg Rice?
Yeah, I mean,
I think what Ray Mike said, it's your turn.
Yeah, you can't get into what he said, and I'll allow that question.
Okay,
I mean, you can't say what Greg Rice said.
I didn't ask what Greg Rice said, I was asking about the children, but I can ask it this way. In your time with the victim's children, did you see anything that would indicate that the children were afraid of him?
Just the opposite. No, they spoke very high. They spoke of him the way I would want my children to speak of me.
I'm getting on, he's talking about what other people said, that's a hearsay. Hearsay, what children said, hearsay.
Her defense is trying.
At some point, did Erica, your wife, find out that you and the defendant were having an affair?
Yes.
And let me ask the obvious question first. Before she found out, did you take steps to hide the affair from her?
Yes.
Did that include lying to her?
Yes.
So at some point, Erica found out about the affair. Do you know how she found out?
I believe it was when she received anonymous text messages.
Were you together with her when she got those text messages?
I believe so, yes. Yeah.
Did she?
That's not a affirmative answer. He said it was pretty certain, okay, but question answer.
Her defense is doing a good job. So I think her defense is trying to keep certain stuff out because he said, I'm pretty certain I was there, but that's not like a yes or no. And so her defense is trying.
I can
What do
clarify.
you want me to do? It's right there.
Just have him rephrase it, or check on him, see if he is testifying, what he knows, he testifying, I'm sure.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Okay. I forgot where I was now. Did she show you any of those? Did she confront you about those text messages?
Yes, she did.
What was your response to her about the text? Do you remember what any of them said?
It was something to the effect of, your husband has impregnated someone. Just thought you might want to know about it.
What did you say when she confronted you with those text messages?
That I had no idea who would have sent that, and that wasn't true.
So you lied to her because you were trying to cover up your affair?
Yeah.
At that time, did you have any idea who sent those messages?
No.
Did you and or your wife ever, well, I'll stick with you so it's personal knowledge. Did you ever speak with the defendant about those texts?
Yes.
Did the defendant ever tell you who was sending the text or who she thought was sending the text?
She pretty much immediately said that it was Greg Rice.
And I apologize if I've asked you this before. Did you ever meet Greg?
As far as, I never shook his hand. We never spoke. I saw him, he would drive through the neighborhood to pick up the kids. I would wave at him, just a friendly wave. That was the extent of my interaction with him.
After those initial texts, did you and your wife remain married?
I'm sorry?
After Erica received those initial texts, that's a hard word, did you guys remain married?
Yes.
Did it cause additional strain on your marriage?
Yes.
First indulgence for.
Can we fast forward?
Permission with State's Exhibit 153. Did you and the defendant have more than one conversation about who might be kind of trying to leak word of the affair?
Yeah, it was an ongoing conversation over the course of several days.
And were they in-person conversations, text conversations, or both?
Both.
If you could just look at Exhibit 153, it's not admitted yet, so don't read it out loud or anything.
Okay.
But is that a text conversation that you had with the defendant?
It appears to be, yes. I mean, it's been 5 years, so I don't remember exactly, but
Is that your phone number that's?
it is my phone number, yes.
And is that her phone number?
Yes.
Did anyone else ever text from your phone?
Not to my knowledge.
To your knowledge, did anyone ever text from the defendant's phone? Text you from the defendant's phone?
Other than her, no.
Next.
No, I don't think you can do text and work on, so I lose strike that in.
You said not to my knowledge.
I'll roll out loud.
Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here. Before your wife got those anonymous text messages, had you and the defendant and one of her daughters and a friend gone to Florida together?
Yes.
Okay, just tell us a little bit about that.
So they went on a trip to Florida with one of her daughters. And I don't think his wife knew that that this is what it was.
The conversation began with I was going to go to Florida to two things. The Jacksonville area to look at some convenience stores. There was a contract that I got with my maintenance company every year to pressure wash lots of convenience stores up and down the East Coast. And the client that we worked for had numerous stores in Florida that I had never had the chance to bid. And I had been wanting to go there for a long time to drop a business card to some of the franchisees at the stores and try to get my foot in the door to get the Florida region of the contract.
Is she laughing a little? Or it looked like she was smiling. So he is kind of going off on this tangent, talking about his like business and like what he wanted to do, but I don't know that it's appropriate for her to smile. I don't know. It is what it is.
Also a really good pizza place in St. Augustine that I like to go to. And I discussed all this with the defendant.
Okay.
So how is it that you and the defendant and these two other people went together?
Yeah, she said, well, I'll pay for the whole trip. And she booked the trip and we went together and I didn't resist.
Did you tell Erica that you were going with the defendant and the defendant's daughter and her friend?
No, she knew I was going to Florida, but not with them.
Maybe she thinks he's making himself look bad right now. Or like
So I'm approaching the State's Exhibit 98. And I'm just going to direct your attention to, I think it's the sixth line. Is that an accurate list of the people who went to Florida on that trip?
Yes.
To your knowledge, did anyone else know who all went on that trip?
No, not to my knowledge.
While you were, and how close in time was that trip to when Greg was killed?
I don't remember the exact dates of the trip. I know Greg was killed on the night of the 2nd. It would have been within a week to 2 weeks, I believe.
During that trip, did the defendant tell you anything about any text conversations or issues she was having with the victim?
Yes. So during that trip, she claimed that Greg Rice was upset because she had left the kids with him for longer than he expected to have them. And then she showed me what appeared to be a text from Greg saying something to the effect of, "You have a storm coming."
Oh.
Did she show you?
So she's trying to control her reactions. It's not going very well, but she's trying to control her reactions.
Just that text message, or did she show you?
Because she looks almost amused. It's weird. It's just, but I wonder if she still kind of likes him. I don't know. There's a weird vibe I'm getting from this.
Like an entire conversation?
She did not show me the entire conversation. Matter of fact, that's the only line I remember.
Did the defendant talk to you about that sort of message?
Well, going forward from that point, she acted as if she was terrified of Greg, and that that storm coming message meant that he was going to abuse her again. She was in fear of him, and it was a constant subject of conversation after that. I don't know how she did it. She's very tech savvy, and she did something with her phone to where she could see Greg's phone screen on her phone, and she could track his location. She could see if he was texting somebody, she could see his screen on her screen from wherever she was.
She put something on his phone because I don't know. Like if she can see his screen, then now it's different if she can see his messages, and maybe he's just not tech savvy. Maybe he doesn't know that like she has access. Maybe they like share an iCloud account and she can see his or she can log in. But if she can see his screen, then she has some type of something on his phone.
She,
That's true.
like I said, the constant conversation. Oh, she thought that he was going to use the kids against her. She claimed that he had made comments about trying to take the kids and get child support from her. And like I said, it was a constant conversation after she got that text.
Again, I apologize, I'm jumping around a little bit. At some point, did the defendant tell you that she had become pregnant?
Yes,
Was that before or after the trip to Florida?
before. That would have been in, I believe it was late August.
Did she tell you who the father of the child was?
She said that the father of the child was me.
At some point during this time period when the anonymous text messages were being sent, was there ever any conversation about a package coming in the mail?
Yes. One of the anonymous texts that my wife received said that something along the lines of all the proof is in the mail, or all the proof, all these messages will be sent in paper form.
So I don't know if she was pregnant or not. I think she, if she was planning to do something to her ex, I think if he thought she was pregnant, he might try to protect her. So that's where I'm not sure if it was true. I'm not sure. But it could have been. I don't know. But there's a part of me that questions was that just manipulation again?
Or something like that in the mail.
And so what conversations did you and the defendant have about this potential package?
I don't remember exact conversations we had about it, but I can tell you when it came, I was home and I received it.
Who was the package addressed to?
It was addressed to my wife.
Was there a return address on it?
There was. It was from an education company in Columbia.
What made you think that that was the package that would be related to the anonymous text?
Because the company that was listed, or the school that was listed as the sender, was not the school that my wife worked for. It was a different one. And combine that with the fact that supposedly this stuff was coming in the mail, I put two and two together, and I opened the package and
What did you see inside?
I saw several pages of what appeared to be screenshots of text messages, as well as photo collages. And to be honest with you, I didn't even examine it. I knew what it was, and I got in my car and drove it down to the defendant's house and gave it to her.
Did you have any idea what she was going to do with that package?
I did not.
But you said you saw photo. What did you see inside the box?
Photo collages. Some of the pages had screenshots of text messages. Some of them had photo collages. I mean, I noticed that there were some pictures I recognized of myself on there, but I didn't analyze each page or look at all the pictures.
Okay.
But that's where I wonder if she wanted him to herself and was trying to cause problems in his relationship.
Now let's move to October 2nd.
Okay.
Starting at about 6:15, we had the jury.
So October 2nd is the day of the incident, is the day that Gregory Rice died.
Seen evidence that you and the defendant left River's Edge in separate cars around 6:15, 6:20. I'm just trying to orient him into. So
That's the same objection, just ask your question.
at some point that evening, did you and the defendant leave River's Edge community at about the same time?
I don't believe so. I believe I was already out working,
Of course, it was.
and when I met with her, if I recall correctly, it was at the Heritage Wildlife Preserve.
Course indulgence. What type of car did you typically drive?
A silver Ford Explorer.
Was that a county car?
Yes.
What type of car did the defendant typically drive?
Typically I believe it was silver, Honda Odyssey minivan.
I'm approaching you with admitted exhibits 136 and 138. So let's start with 136. Do you recognize both the car and the driver in that photo?
Yes, that's the defendant driving her work van.
What's the date and timestamp on that?
October 2nd, 6:16 p.m.
Okay, now look at 138. Do you recognize that car?
Yeah, that appears to be me entering the gate at October 2nd at 6:20 p.m. Okay.
And you said entering. Is that you entering the community or?
Yeah, I believe we're both entering in that picture. I'm not sure though.
And if you don't know, that's fine.
I don't know.
Shortly after this time, did you two go to, I'm just calling it the Preserve because the name's too long, the Preserve on International Drive?
We did, yes.
What was the purpose of going there?
Shooting,
Had you done that before?
yes, many times.
Did you, when you would go shooting, who was shooting? Was it you, was it her, or was it a combination?
If I might backtrack a little bit, prior to all of this, I would say total throughout the duration of time that from the time I met the defendant until all of this transpired, we probably went shooting 12 to 15 times. Sometimes it was at the Heritage Preserve. Sometimes it was in the woods off of Water Tower Road. I know she shot more frequently than I did, but she often asked me to go with her, and sometimes I did. Sometimes I went and didn't shoot, and she shot. Sometimes I did shoot.
So speaking directly to the night of October 2nd, who shot that night?
The defendant.
Do you know what kind of gun she used?
I don't know the kind of gun. I know it was a small black gun. I don't know the brand or anything.
How long, you can estimate, and if you can't, that's fine. How long were you in the Preserve that night?
Not long. So I had worked all day that day. I went on call for the coroner's office at 8 o'clock that morning. I got my first call pretty much right away, and I stayed busy all day. I hadn't eaten much, and I wanted to go to get some dinner. That was my priority. So when we shot, we weren't there more than 10 to 15 minutes. I remember it being muddy, and all I could think about was eating. So we didn't stay long.
So did you guys in fact go to eat after that?
We did, yes.
Where did you go?
Abuelos.
How long were you at Boyles for? You can estimate or not if you don't know.
I would only be estimating an hour maybe.
What did you do after Abuelos?
So, well, while we were at Abuelos, I remember that a friend of my family who works at a different restaurant, it was her last weekend working there, and I mentioned to the defendant that we should have gone there in Socrates. So we decided that when we left Abuelos, we would stop by there to see her on her last shift.
Okay. So I am, because we're watching it at 1.25. So I'll bring it back down to normal because we're starting to get into some of the details of the actual incident.
So we left Abuelos and headed for the restaurant in Socrates. When we got there, there was a line out the door. There was nowhere to park. So we ended up not even going there. So we continued on down the road to another friend of ours' residence. He lives on a houseboat in the Osprey Marina. So we headed toward the Osprey Marina.
Did you end up going to that friend's house?
We did not. So backtracking again, I'm sorry. The defendant was acting unusual all day that day. Starting early in the day, she was unavailable for my death calls, which was very unusual because normally when I'm on call, she's right behind me. She followed me around the county, and she would respond to my calls whether I needed her there or not. So it was unusual that she wasn't available part of the day. And then she was very quiet. Even at Abuelos, she was reserved and something was off. So then while we're driving, when we got to the Osprey Marina, I was turning in and she said, "Just keep driving. I don't want to see Charles, who's our friend. I don't feel like dealing with people." just keep driving.
So what did you guys do?
So we continued driving. I remember we drove down Enterprise Road to Bay Road and looped back around to 707.
Was anything going on between the two of you during that ride?
Not that I recall in particular, but we, at some point I remember I realized that I didn't have any of my supplies that I needed for work. I had a little blue bag that I carried with me that had all the paperwork I needed. It had my gloves. It had things I would need if I were to get a death call. And I had left it in my Explorer everybody loves.
So what did you do when
So
you
we
got
went, at some point we went back to get the bag out of my Explorer in case I got a death call. So I would be able to do what I needed to do.
Can I infer then that you and the defendant were driving in her van when you?
We were, yeah, we left my Explorer at Abuelo's, and I was driving her van.
What happened after you went back to Abuelo's to pick up your bag?
She said that she needed to stop by at Myrtle Beach Funeral Home because she had left her glasses there earlier that day.
Was this after typical business hours at a funeral home?
It was late. It was dark, so it had to have been 9 o'clock or so.
How would you guys have gotten into the Myrtle Beach funeral home? If it's after hours?
With the key.
Who had a key?
The defendant definitely had one. I may have also had one. I had keys to some funeral homes, but not others. So we had at least one key with us, maybe two.
So the defendant says she has to get glasses. Did you in fact go to the funeral home?
We did.
Tell me about that. What happened?
So we went to the funeral home, and I assumed she was looking for her glasses. She went to the left. We walked in the back door of the building. She walked to the left, which is back toward where the embalming room is. I went straight up the hall toward the office. At some point, I heard her speaking, presumably on the phone. And then I heard the conversation end. She came to the office. When she got to the office, she had her cell phone out. And I was talking to her and she wasn't looking up at me. Whatever was on her phone, she was very, had her attention. And she said, I have to go see Greg.
Did she say why she had to go see Greg?
She did not, but I said, well, I'm not going.
Why not? Why wouldn't you go?
Because she was constantly complaining about drama and abuse, and I didn't want to be part of it. She would typically take a friend with her. Her friend Savannah would go with her to Greg's house, or she would go on her own.
Is that based on what she told you, or did you actually witness her?
Based on what she told me.
So what?
I didn't want to be caught up in drama.
What happened when you told her you weren't going to go?
She said she would just be a few minutes, just go with her.
What happened next?
So I drove her van. We drove toward Greg's apartment complex, which is off of Arrowhead Road.
Let me stop you there for a second. Did you know where Greg lived before this?
I knew where his apartment complex was. I'd been there on death calls before, so I knew roughly, I forget what it was called now, but I knew how to get to the general area.
Did you ever require directions to get there?
No.
What? So I'm sorry, now continue. You headed in the direction of the victim.
We headed in the direction. She called Greg while we were driving, and I guess he had indicated to her that he was outside. She told me that she makes him meet her outside because she's uncomfortable going to his apartment. So he meets her outside of the apartment complex. So we were driving down Arrowhead Road, and I saw Greg on the left side of the road walking towards us, just outside of the apartment complex. And I said, is that him? She said, yeah. So as we approached him, I started to slow down, and she said, make a U-turn. So I kind of passed him, made a U-turn. And as I pulled up alongside him, she said, because he stopped walking and he kind of turned to face our van. And
Thank you, Kelly.
I was stopping right next to him, and she said, pull up, don't be awkward. So I said, pull up. She said, yeah, pull up. So I pulled up so that we had passed him.
What happened next?
She opened the door and shot him.
How many shots did you hear?
A lot.
What did you do?
I froze.
Did the defendant say anything to you at that point?
Yeah. She said, what are you doing? Help me, help me. Cursing at me, help me.
So what did you do?
I got out of the van and walked toward the back of the van. Greg was laying right at the back of the van on the side of the road.
What did you do?
She said, put him in the back of the van. So I opened the back of the van and we started treating him just as we would treat any other body. And I grabbed the sheet, wrapped it up like a rope.
And so I think all of these details, because a part of his testimony, he's hoping that he's going to get a reduced sentence. And I don't know that if I was the judge, that I would give him a reduced sentence, especially he was the deputy coroner. And his actions, the way that he did things, to me, he used his knowledge to try to cover up a crime. And I think there should be consequences for that. That's just me. I don't know if he's going to get a reduced testimony, but I'm sorry, a reduced sentence, but we'll see.
Put it underneath his torso to help with leverage. And then in her van, she had what we call I don't remember what we called it, like a sliding board. It was a black plastic backboard, and it was flexible so that you could put a body on it and easily slide it and maneuver it around. I pulled that off of her stretcher, and using the sheet as leverage, we both picked Greg up and put him on the sliding board and put him into the back of the van.
What did you do next?
I reached in and started buckling him. So on the mortuary stretchers that we had put him on, there's 2 seat belts, and you click them, and what they do is they hold the body in place. And I started to do that, and she started screaming and cussing at me and said, what are you doing? We need to get out of here. We need to get out of here. And I shut the back door. Greg was just kind of haphazardly on the stretcher. He wasn't buckled on. He wasn't covered up. And we got in the van, and I hightailed it out of there.
How long would you say you were in the Arrowhead community?
Not long. I mean, it happened fast. And by the time when I pulled up in front of him, it was like one swift move. Like she opened the door, slid out, and it was pop, 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 pop.
Had the 2 of you moved bodies before together? You just have to say yes or no.
Yes.
As part of your jobs, was that a fairly frequent occurrence?
Yes, every day.
So you said that you hightailed it out of the Arrowhead community. Where did you go?
We went back to the funeral home.
What happened when you got there?
Well, first of all, on the way there, I asked her, what just happened? Why did you do that? And she didn't say much. She told me to go to the funeral home. And I just remember the complete nonchalance, just
Lack of emotion.
like this, it was like a minor inconvenience that we were going through.
So what happened once you got back to the funeral home?
So at the funeral home, when you bring a body in, they have a garage and they have coolers in the garage, and the coolers have one door that you open, and there's either 3 or 4 shelves inside the door. And wheeled Greg in on stretcher. I made a cremation container, which is pretty much a glorified cardboard box. And you use little zip ties to tie it up and make it rigid. And I made one just like we would make for anybody else. And I put it into the cooler and pushed the stretcher up next to it and started to push Greg in. And the whole time she was yelling, "Are you stupid? Are you stupid? Hurry up. We got to get out of here. Hurry up. Are you stupid?" Over and over again. "Are you stupid?"
Did you have any concerns about leaving the victim in a cooler and leaving the funeral home?
I put so sometimes the coroner's office will use funeral homes as extra storage, like if we're out of room at the morgue in Conway, or if it's, for whatever reason, we might need to leave a body in a funeral home. And typically we put a note on the shelf that the body's on that just says "hold for coroner," and that's what I did. I put a note on it that said "hold for coroner."
Would that have been unusual? A note, hold for coroner?
No.
And so I wonder, because her tears right here, I wonder what her tears right here, what's going on in her mind. Like, this is looking bad for me. Like, I wonder what that's about. Or he just said that she showed no emotion, and if now she's trying to show some emotion.
That was a regular thing.
During this time that you're taking Greg out of the van and loading him into the cooler, were you able to see him? Was there a lot of blood?
So the night that we put him in,
Yes, the night he was killed.
I did not look. I had draped a sheet across him when we brought him in from the van, and I just pushed him in like he was. Now, the next night, I saw him.
Okay,
And
I'll get to that in just a minute.
Okay.
So after you put Greg in the cooler, what did you guys do?
Got out of there fast and went back to her house.
Did you go back to?
I'm sorry.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
On the way back to her house, we had to get my Explorer from Abuelo's. So we stopped to get my Explorer before we went back to her house. On the way to get the Explorer, she told me that if I ever told anybody what happened, she would kill me. And that we have to be in this together. She told me that I have to stay with her that night. I better not leave her. And then we went, got my Explorer. We went to Lowe's food store on International Drive.
Because they have him on camera purchasing purchasing items at those places.
And I can't remember which vehicle we left there. We left one of the vehicles in the parking lot of the Lowe's food store. and
So
took the
your
other
Explorer
two.
was still at a Lowe's, but you went and picked it up and went to Lowe's? I'm just trying to get that.
Correct, yes.
Where did you go after that?
We went to Megan's house.
So at some point, did you go back to the funeral home that night?
We did.
Why?
So I got to backtrack and tell you the background. When we got back to her house, her daughter, Savannah,
This is hard.
was watching TV in the living room. And I just remember thinking how normal it looked in the house. And I had to pretend that this hadn't just happened. Sorry. Megan went straight to the shower. And I sat on the couch with Savannah. I'm sorry, Savannah.
That's definitely apologize.
Okay, you just have to answer my questions.
Sat on the couch with her. And I tried to make small talk. Like I hadn't just watched her mother kill her father.
I made that clear. So I'm not sure if he had a lawyer for his testimony. As part of his, when he pled guilty, he probably had to say the facts. So the state is probably already aware of all of this. So his lawyer was probably present. And what he's saying here is likely very similar to whatever he said when he pled guilty. That's what I would guess. I don't know that for sure. You'll always have great questions.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
You said you would return to the funeral home at some point that night. So you got back to Megan's house, she's upstairs taking a shower, you're on the couch with Savannah, what happened next?
There's an app that we use for the coroner's office. It's called Iris.
Is that
And
IRIS?
I believe it's IRISS.
Okay, thank you. So there's an app,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
So the Iris app, it tells you what's going on in the county. Only law enforcement, fire, rescue, coroners have access to it. And I remember seeing on that app that there was what appeared to be a pending death on the south end of town. It said it was a cardiac arrest. The call came into the cardiac arrest. I believe it was a man that was found down in his driveway. And I told the defendant after she got out of the shower about that call. I said, it looks like there's going to be a death call and I can't not go on it. I can't act like something is out of the ordinary. And she said that she wanted to go back to the funeral home anyway because she forgot to get Greg's belongings off of his body.
Did she ever say why she wanted to get his belongings?
I don't know that she specifically said why.
Okay. Did you then go back to the funeral home?
We did.
What happened when you got there?
When we got there, I parked out back. I did not go in at first. It's very late at night at this point. It's got to be probably after midnight. And I parked out back. I stayed in the car. The defendant went into the building. And right after she went in the building, two older people, an older couple, walked around from the side of the building around back. And I had never seen them before. And they were walking toward the door of the building. And I thought it was unusual that they were going into the back door of a funeral home at 12:30 at night. So I asked them, I rolled down the window, I said, "Can I help you?" And they weren't very friendly. They just said, "We're here to work." So with everything that was going on this evening, everything in the world just wasn't adding up to me. So I got out of the Explorer and went into the funeral home. I walked back to the left and because I saw the light was on in the embalming room, and they were in there. The older couple was in there, and they told me that they were trade embalmers and that they were there to embalm the body. I still thought it was odd that I had never seen them before, but there was a deceased woman on the table, and they appeared to be embalmers. So I made small talk with them for a minute, and I left. I walked back out to the main hallway to go back outside. At that point, the defendant was walking down the hallway like she had come from the front of the building.
How long would you say the defendant was in the funeral home before the trade embalmers went in?
Not long at all. Maybe less than a minute, probably.
When she came walking up, did you ever see what she had taken from Greg's body?
Yeah, I saw keys and I forget what else, but she had some of his personal effects.
Did she ever tell you what she did with that stuff?
All right. So there's a great question. So there was a point where, as a mom, she could have mouthed something to her daughter, but her daughter already believes that she's guilty, and her daughter asked to testify for the state. So I think she's kind of written off. Like, I think she's probably disconnected from her daughter. Those are just my general thoughts. People even said that because she probably thinks he's up there trying to save his marriage and he's trying to get a lesser sentence. There might still be this part of her that might think he might still care for her. I don't know, like she might not have written him off completely, but with her daughter, there was just this contempt and disdain. I don't know. It was tough to watch.
Yeah. So the next morning, I'm still on call. I'm on call all throughout this weekend.
All right. So they are going to look, and it is his body. They go through all of that. And they're just going to talk about that end part. I did want to share the verdict because right here, and she was already sentenced as well. And so let's watch her reaction to the verdict. And you can check out, because there were victim impact statements. We are not going to get into those today. But if you want to dive deeper into this case, please do. And like I said, Grizzly True Crime did cover this case thoroughly.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I understand the jury's reached a verdict, is that correct? All right, and have you written the verdict on the indictment, signed it as the foreperson and dated?
Yes.
All right, if you would please hand it to the bailiff. All right, I'll ask the clerk if she would please publish the verdict.
Indictment number 2021-001, South Carolina, County of Horry versus Meagan Marie Jackson as to the charge of murder, we the jury, by unanimous consent, find this defendant guilty. Signed by foreperson Jeffrey Roberts, dated June 17th, 2025. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if this is your verdict, please so signify by raising your right hand.
She looks angry,
Thank you.
maybe sad.
Well, let the record reflect that all jurors raised their right hand. Any opposed to the jury by the defense?
No, sir.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your service. That will conclude your duties as jurors in this case and for this term of court. I want to thank you for your service. I know jury duty is not a fun thing to do, but it is an important thing to do and a vital thing to do. You have a 1-year disqualification from serving as jurors in state circuit court. You've got a 3-year exemption. I hope you don't exercise your exemption because we do need good jurors. And I want to thank you for your service. You're free to go at this time if you want to go. If you want to stay until the conclusion of the proceedings, you can do that as well to remain in the jury box. So it's up to you as to those of you who wish to go ahead and leave now, you can leave now. Thank you very much. All right, anything before we impose sentence?
No, Your Honor.
Well, first, I guess at this point in time, I know the rules of criminal procedure do allow time periods for post-trial motions. Is there any post-trial motions at this time?
Your Honor, we move for a judgment NOV by you based on the adequacy of the evidence presented, and also that you impose a verdict as 13th juror, having sat.
Okay, so her attorney is trying, but she's been found guilty by 12 jurors, and it does sound like there was pretty strong evidence in this case.
After the trial, heard the evidence, we make those 2 motions. We would like a little time to flesh those out if possible.
All right, well, I'm going to deny both motions for judgment NOV, and also the motion for the 13th juror. I think there's sufficient evidence presented to the jury that supports their verdict. As I said, the rules of criminal procedure do give you time periods to file post-trial motions, so I'll entertain any other post-trial motions you want to do. Pursuant to those rules, I'll give you that time. All right, anything further at this time?
Your Honor, we
Okay, so
are printing the sentencing sheet. We do have 2 victims who would like to address the court. Savannah Rice, who has been present the whole time, and then Zachary Rice, who is the victim's son from another relationship. With the court's permission, that would be via WebEx because he's had help now.
I'm not doing WebEx.
Okay.
All right.
and it might just be that judge just doesn't like technology. Like I don't know why the judge wouldn't let him do it via WebEx.
So once we get the sentencing sheet, I will give the victims who are present an opportunity to speak with them.
We are going to go ahead and watch this.
I believe Ms. Rice wants me to read her statement.
Well, I mean, we're not doing that right now.
No,
I
I
need the sentencing sheet. I'll let you know when I want to hear from the victims.
You want to fast forward? So the judge is going to take a look at that. Let's see.
So with the court's permission, I'll read that one as well. He's a statutory victim, Your Honor.
Yeah, but why isn't he here? He has the right to be here, but he's not here.
Because he was forced to take custody of the children when their father was killed, and he has had to struggle to find jobs to now all of a sudden care for extra children.
State tried. I hope they let it in.
All right. Anything in mitigation from the defense?
Now, we've asked she be given credit for the time that she was in jail off of her sons and credit for home detention. I don't have the exact figure, but I'd like to present that to you in my post-trial motion.
All right. Ms. Jackson, anything you want to say, or does anybody want to speak on your behalf?
She decided not to.
No, she wishes not to speak. All right.
That's
Any
all right.
prior record?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I'll hear from victims. It's done.
And Your Honor, did you need me to address the issue of home detention or no?
No, I'm not.
Your Honor, this is from Zachary Rice, who is the older son of Gregory Rice at the time. Once Gregory Rice was killed, Zachary Rice took custody of the 4 half-siblings. And he did this fairly quickly since we did not have WebEx available to him. He says 5 lives completely shattered, showed no remorse, waited 5 years for this, just celebrated Father's Day without him again. I would like the maximum in sentencing, took my father's life, and I want her to pay eye for an eye and lose hers. And then, Your Honor, if I can have Ms. Savannah Rice come up. Your Honor, she's understandably emotional. She says, Your Honor, I believe that my opinion for how long she should be sentenced does not reflect what has already been done. This crime has torn apart my family, others' families, and friends beyond any measure.
Yeah.
My siblings and I have all suffered greatly, not only from the loss of my father, but the loss of a mother too, the loss of our lives. We have been waiting so many years for just a bit of closure, and this is it. We will never have the chance to freely live our lives without the thoughts of what has been done following behind us. It has become a challenge to rebuild and grow from everything that happened. There are still days where I just cry and wish I could go back in time to maybe prevent what happened. I can't do that though, and I will forever have the thought that I can't change anything alongside me.
Yeah.
This trial and getting up on the stand has been one of the most heartbreaking and painful things I've ever had to do. It has also been one of the most relieving and rewarding things. I finally got to say what has been sitting in my brain the last 4.5 years. It was a relief finally being able to tell the truth and to go towards a cause. I believe that 50 years to life would be a sufficient amount of time. I thank you for your time, for listening to what I had to say. Thank you.
Good job, Savannah.
Does Your Honor wish the state to address sentencing?
Well, if there's anything you want to put on the record.
Your Honor, the state is asking for the maximum term of life imprisonment. We believe that there is clear evidence that this defendant not only plotted and planned this murder, but also tried to frame the victim for things that she was doing. As Savannah said, and as I said in explaining why Zach couldn't be here, this really did destroy a number of lives. Zach was forced to take in 4 children, his half-siblings, as a result of them being EPC'd after Meagan Jackson was arrested. We believe that there was nothing short of life in prison that would address this crime.
All right, Ms. Jackson, you have been found guilty of murder by a jury of your peers, sentenced to the court. I agree with the state. The sentence of the court is that you be committed to the Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life. You will get credit for any time, sir. All right. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. All right, anything further from the state?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
All right, court is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that's that. Don't do crimes, people. And because a lot of people are asking what the motive could have been. Why did she take the life of her children's father? And because then later, according to Savannah, she's like, her sister was maybe, I don't know, her sister was having behavior issues, and she made a statement of like, I'll do what happened to your dad. Like that, I'm paraphrasing that, but that's just, that's strange. Hey, Kelly D, I missed earlier. Did you discuss Savannah's shakes and rubs? So I did. So I covered Savannah's testimony, and I think Savannah was understandably distressed, and her mother is sitting here glaring at her, and I think she was close to her mother, and hearing her impact statement, she likely wished that she could have done something to prevent it, but I don't think that there's anything that anyone could have done to necessarily stop this. she seemed pretty determined. So I don't think Savannah should have any of that. Now she's understandably going to have regrets. But a part of the grieving process, I hope that she's able to um sometimes we talk about forgive yourself, that she's able to understand that she was 14. She was 14 years old and she was already placed in a role that I think wasn't appropriate because of her mom's lack of boundaries. And what I mean by that is I think Megan treated Savannah more like a friend than a daughter. And so, yeah. Let me see. What was Megan crying? She has to know that she was going to jail. So I think she's probably upset that she got the maximum. She likely wanted the jury to think that she was innocent and that she had nothing to do with this and she wanted to get away with all of this and she didn't. She didn't get away with any of it. And she probably feels betrayed by her former lover and her daughter, and then there was a bunch of other testimony in this case as well. They read text messages and all of that. All right. Was there money involved? So she was arrested because they found his body because she reported him missing. It sounds like he was reported missing by October 5th. And because sometimes they won't officially take the report until a certain number of days that the person hasn't been seen or heard from, because this happened on October 2nd. And so I think once his body was recovered, I think fingers were immediately pointed towards her and Christopher. I do hope that the children are receiving some type of therapy and support, because sometimes while there might be some relief that justice has been served, there will never be complete closure because they can never get their dad back, and their dad was taken by their mother, which adds additional trauma to all of this. I think they didn't have control of the cream of, like, the cremation part. Maybe that was a part of the plan, but, I don't know why they didn't. So and we love criminals that do a bad job. We absolutely love it when criminals don't do a good job. So, I appreciate you all staying on. For members, we are going to be hopping over to a members only video where we are going to chat about our family's recent trip to Disney World. And I like to break down the after trip thoughts and all of that. I did share earlier, so if you go back in the video, I shared earlier my thoughts on why Christopher's wife is choosing to stay with him. I think he's going to be sentenced this coming week. So I do think at some time this coming week he's going to be sentenced. I hope y'all have a great week. I will be live again on Tuesday. Not sure which case we're going to talk about. But we will be live on Tuesday to chat. And then, because I'll keep y'all updated with scheduling stuff, because I have a presentation coming up and I'm going to do a members only run through of my presentation where it's on social media and mental health. And so I'm going to do that for you all. And then after I give the presentation, I'll also make that video available to everyone too. But I hope y'all have a good rest of your day. I'll see members in just a moment. Have a good one. Bye.